Welcome to ResoCoder. In the second part of this tutorial course about making a timer app for Android, we are gonna make the actual foreground timer. In the first part we made the UI, and you should definitely check that tutorial out if you haven't already. So as I've already said, in this part we are gonna make the foreground timer. In the next parts we are gonna make the background timer, and we are gonna make it so that we can control this app from notifications, and then we are gonna create a settings screen, or otherwise known as preference activity, in which we will be able to set the length of the timer. But now let's get right to it. We wanna open app, Java, the first package, and timer activity. And as you can see, we already have one error. That's because we removed the default floating action button, and the default floating action button's ID was fab. But now it just isn't there, so Kotlin cannot find that ID. That's why we can safely remove all of this. And first up, let's set up the icon which is gonna display on the top left of the toolbar. For that, however, we need to import that icon. So let's go to Drawable, right click on it, new vector asset, and we want to search for timer, so timer, and we want to select this one, import it, and just change it to IC timer, and click next, and finish. Alright, we want to add it to Git, and we want to open it up, and change its color to be FFF, which is white. And here we want to write support action bar, null safe access operator, and we want to set icon to be r.drawable.icTimer. And let's also set the title, which is going to appear on the action bar. So support action bar, again Elvis operator, and title is equal to timer with a couple of spaces. The spaces are here because we want to offset it. If we run the app now, it's looking pretty nice. Here is the icon and here is the title. Now inside timer activity, we want to create an enum class. It's gonna be called timer state, and it's gonna have three values: stopped, paused, and running. Now we are gonna create a private property for the timer. So private, lateinit, var, and if you don't know what lateinit means, check out my tutorial on Kotlin properties by clicking on the card in the corner. It's gonna be called timer, and it's gonna be of type CountdownTimer. Also private var timer length seconds, it's gonna be of type long, and it's gonna be equal to 0 by default. And private var timer state, it's gonna be of type timer state, and by default it's gonna be equal to timer state dot stopped. And we also wanna keep track of seconds of the timer remaining, so private var seconds remaining, it's gonna be also of type long, but we don't even need to specify it, and it's gonna be equal to 0. And we can actually do the same thing over here, so 0 and L, so that it knows it's long and not an integer. Alright, and now inside onCreate we wanna get hold of fab start, and we wanna set its onClick listener. We're gonna do it in the form of lambda, v for view, and over here we wanna start timer. We are gonna define these functions in just a little while. We also wanna set timer state to be timer state running, just like this, and we also wanna call a function update buttons. Because hey, we want to enable some buttons and we want to disable other ones. For example, if a timer is stopped, the stop button is not going to be enabled. Now let's get to the fab pause. We also want to set its onClick listener, and we want to call timer.cancel. We also want to set timer state to be paused, and we also want to update buttons. And now for the last fab stop, also set onClick listener, and we want to call timer.cancel too. And we want to call another function onTimerFinished. We aren't gonna need to call update buttons in the fab stops onClick listener because it's already encompassed in the onTimerFinished function. In other words, update buttons is gonna be called from onTimerFinished too. Now let's override a lifecycle function onResume. So override fun onResume. First we want to call super.onResume, and then we want to initialize timer. So init timer. We're going to create this method in just a bit too. And then in the later parts we want to do something here. So to do, remove background timer, and we also want to hide notification. But that's something for the next part, so definitely stay tuned for that and subscribe to this channel, and also hit the bell button if you don't want to miss it. Now another lifecycle function onPause. So override fun onPause, And here, if timer state is equal to timer state.running, we want to cancel the timer, so timer.cancel. And remember that this function onPause is called just before the activity goes into background. So if we have our app over here, when we press on the home button, now is when the onPause function is called. And in the next part, we want to do something over here as well. And we want to start background timer and show notification. Else if timer state is equal to timer state.paused, we don't need to cancel the timer over here because it's already not running since the timer is paused, so we only want to show notification over here. And we don't even want to start a background timer because, hey, it's paused. And now comes the time when we need to use preferences. Preferences are something like variables, but they are persistent even when the app is not running. So for example, the app's process is killed and all of the variables which are inside this activity are going to be wiped clean. However, if we save something to preferences, those variables are not going to be wiped. They are persistent and they are saved to the drive. That's why we are gonna be using them in this app. Basically, we are gonna use them so we can remember the values of some variables even when the app is killed. So let's create a prevUtil class, which is short for preference utility. Right click on the first package. We want to create a new package, util. And now right click on this util package and we want to create a new Kotlin file or a class. We want to create a class prevUtil. And right inside here, we want to create a companion object. So companion object. Members which are defined inside the companion object are something like static members in Java or C#. Here we want to create a function getTimerLength. We want to pass a context over here because we need a context to be able to extract a value from preferences, and it's going to return an integer. However, this is going to be only a placeholder function and it's going to return 1 minute. We are going to change this function from being a placeholder to being a real function in the fourth part, in which we are going to be making the preference activity in which we will be able to set the length of the timer. Now let's create a private const val, and it's gonna be called previous timer length seconds ID, and this is the ID which we are gonna use in the preferences to identify the values. Preferences are basically key value pairs like maps or dictionaries if you're from the C# background. They are just persisted to the disk. And IDs are strings and they have to be unique for your app. So it's always a good practice to include a package name, so com.resocoder.timer.previous timer length. Now we want to have a function getPreviousTimerLength seconds. It's going to accept a context and it's going to return long. And now what is this function actually going to do? If you don't look at this previous for a while, it's simple, getTimerLength seconds. This function above is going to be getting the timer length in minutes. So why do we have two functions, one for previous and one basically for non-previous length? Well, that's because of the preference activity which we are gonna create in the fourth part. Imagine this, you have a timer set for 20 minutes and it's running, but then you decide to change the length of the timer from 20 minutes to say 30 minutes. Remember that the timer is running. You exit the timer activity and you go to the settings activity and you change the length of the timer. And I am gonna say it again that the timer is running while you are changing the length of the timer. I think that you agree that it's not a good idea to change the length of the running timer too. We just wanna change the length of the future timers after the one which is currently running stops. That's exactly why we need to remember the previous timer length. So that even when the timer length is changed while a timer is running, the current timer's length is not gonna be changed, only the length of the future timers is going to be changed. So after this exhaustive explanation, let's get right to coding. We wanna create vowel preferences. It's gonna be equal to preference manager dot get default shared preferences, and we wanna pass in a context. And now we wanna return preferences dot get long at key previous timer length seconds ID, and we also want to specify a default value which is going to be returned if the key is not present in the preferences. In this case, it's going to be 0. Let's also create a function for setting the previous timer length seconds, and this is going to accept seconds, which is long, and also a context. It's not going to return anything, and we want to create an immutable variable, editor. It's going to be equal to preference manager dot get default shader preferences. We want to again pass in a context, and we want to get the editor, so edit. Now inside the editor, we want to put long, add the key of previous timer length seconds ID, and we want to put the long seconds. And then we want to apply the changes to the editor, so editor.apply. We also want to keep track of timer state, so private const val timer state ID, and it's equal to com resocoder timer state, and function get timer state. We want to pass in a context, and it's gonna return timer activity dot timer state, which is the enum class that we defined earlier in this tutorial. And we want to again get preferences, so just copy and paste the line. And now we want to get the ordinal, so val ordinal is equal to preferences dot get int, because enums are basically just integers with names, so we can store them as integers in the preferences. And we want to get the int of timer state, and the default value is 0, which, by the way, if we go to timer activity, the default value of 0 is stopped. And now that we have the ordinal, we want to return timer activity dot timer state dot values, and we want to pass in ordinal as the index. Cool, now let's set timer state. We want to pass in a state, which is defined in timer activity dot timer state, and also a context. It's again not going to return anything. And we again want to get the editor, so just copy this line and paste it in here. We want to get the ordinal, so val ordinal is equal to state.ordinal, and we want to put int inside the editor, so editor.putInt, add the key of timer state ID, and the value is ordinal. And now we want to call editor.apply. Cool, and we want to keep track of one last variable, seconds remaining. For that, we can copy this get previous timer length seconds and set previous timer length seconds, paste it down here. The ID is going to be seconds remaining, and the function is going to be get seconds remaining and set seconds remaining. Alright, and here we also want to get a long, but we want to get long seconds remaining. And over here we want to put long seconds remaining. And that's basically it. Now let's go back to timer activity, and right where we left off inside onPause, we want to call previewTil dot set previous timer length seconds. Seconds are timer length seconds, which are the current timer length seconds, and context is this activity. Now also previewTil dot set seconds remaining, we want to pass in seconds remaining, and also this. And for the last thing, previewTil dot set timer state, we want to pass in timer state, which we defined above, and also this. Cool, now let's create a function in a timer. This is the function which we are calling from onResume, which is called just after onCreate. But as opposed to onCreate, onResume is called every single time that you see the activity come up on the screen. OnCreate is called only once, and then it's called again only when the activity was destroyed in the background. OnResume is gonna be called even when the activity has not been yet destroyed. And inside init timer, which should actually be private fun, we wanna get the current timer state, and we want to get it from preferences, so previewTil, and we want to get timer state, and let's pass in this as the context. Now if timer state is equal to stopped, so timer state.stopped, we want to set the new timer length. Otherwise, so else, we want to set previous timer length. And I have already talked about previous timer length and actually also about new timer length. When the timer is stopped, we can safely set it to a new timer length which was changed in the preferences. However, if it's running or even if it's paused, we want to keep its timer length which was previously set to it. We also want to set seconds remaining here, and we want to set them conditionally, so if timer state is running or timer state is paused, we want to set seconds remaining from previewTil, so get seconds remaining, and we want to pass in this. Otherwise, so else, which is basically if timer state is stopped, we want to set seconds remaining to timer length seconds. And now let's get to why we are doing this. If timer is running or it's paused, it was already running before the init timer was called. So what happened is we were inside the timer activity just like this. But now the user pressed home button or he killed the app, right? So now we are not inside timer activity. Right over here, seconds remaining was saved along with timer state and previous timer length seconds when the onPause was called. And now when we come back to the app, just like this, and the timer is running or it's paused, we wanna continue the timer from where it left off. So we wanna get seconds remaining which were saved right inside onPause. But if the timer is not running or it's even not paused, this means that the timer is stopped, we can set seconds remaining to be the full timer length, which is timer length seconds. And timer length seconds was set right inside these calls to set new timer length or to set previous timer length. And in the next part, we wanna do something here. We wanna change seconds remaining according to where the background timer stopped. Now we don't even have a background timer, so we don't need to worry about this yet. And now we wanna resume where we left off. So if timer state is equal to timer state.running, we wanna start the timer. And we also wanna update buttons and also update Countdown UI. And Countdown UI is obviously this text view and also the progress bar, which is currently not visible, but it's going to be visible inside the app. Now, private fun on timer finished, we wanna set timer state to be timer state stopped. We also wanna set new timer length. So basically we set the length of the timer to be the one set in the settings activity if the length was changed when the timer was running. We also wanna get the progress bar, which has ID progress countdown, and we wanna set its progress to be 0. We also wanna set seconds remaining in the preferences, so prevutil.set seconds remaining to be the full timer length seconds, and context is this. We also wanna set the local variable seconds remaining, or actually it's not a variable, it's really a property, but it's local inside this class. We also wanna set it to timer length seconds, and we also wanna update buttons and update Countdown UI. And now for the fun part, start timer. So private fun, start timer. We wanna set timer state to be timer state, running, and we have already created a property timer, and we wanna set it to object, which inherits from CountdownTimer. Inside the constructor, we wanna pass in seconds remaining times 1000. That's because we need to pass in the milliseconds. And countdown interval is going to be 1 second, so 1000 milliseconds. And we wanna override on finish. And this function is gonna be only a one-liner on timer finished. And also override fun on tick. And here we wanna set seconds remaining to be equal to millis until finished divided by 1000. And we also wanna update Countdown UI. And since this is start timer, we wanna start the timer. Now let's create a function private fun set new timer length. We wanna get length in minutes, and we will get it from prevutil.getTimerLength, which is our placeholder function. And we wanna set timer length seconds to be equal to length in minutes times 60 long. And we also wanna set the maximum value of progress countdown, so .max. And we wanna set it to timer length seconds .toInt. Now set previous timer length, and here we wanna set timer length seconds straight from the prevutil. So get previous timer length seconds and pass in this. And the maximum value of progress countdown is also timer length seconds .toInt. And now let's create the last two functions. Update Countdown UI. Here we wanna define minutes until finished, which is equal to seconds remaining /60. Then val seconds in minute until finished, which is seconds remaining, minus minutes until finished times 60. We are creating these variables because of the text view which we need to update. Now val seconds string, or str for short, is gonna be equal to seconds in minute until finished, .toString. And now let's set text view countdown.text to be equal to interpolated string $minutes until finished, colon, and again $, and if seconds str.length is equal to 2, we want to set the seconds counter, which is after the colon, to be straight seconds str. And let's move this if statement down. Otherwise, so else, we want to set the seconds part to be 0, concatenated with seconds str. Nice, and now progress countdown dot progress is equal to timer length seconds in parentheses minus seconds remaining dot to int. And now the last private fun update buttons, and when, timer state. If you are coming from Java, when is basically a switch statement, and if it's timer state running, we want to disable fab start. So fab start that is enabled is equal to false, and we want to enable fab pause and fab stop. So there is enabled is going to be true. If it's timer state dot stopped, we can copy this, but we want to enable fab start and disable fab pause and fab stop. And now for the last timer state dot paused, and here we want to enable fab start, enable fab stop, but we want to disable fab pause. We could also write else instead of timer state dot pause, so else. But I think that seeing the enum value is more expressive. Alright, and now we aren't getting any errors, so we should try to run the app. And here we are, we can start the timer. And as you can see, we have the beautiful material progress bar over here, and it's looking really nice. Currently, we cannot go to the preference activity because we haven't implemented it yet. We can also pause the timer, and it's gonna be paused. And we can even go away from the app, come back, and as you can see, the timer is still there on 38 seconds. We can leave the timer running. Alright, it's at 35 seconds, we can leave the app, it's actually now on 34 seconds, and now when we come back to the app, it's going to resume running. In the next part, we are gonna make the background timer, so the timer is gonna run even when the app is background, or even if it's killed, like this. So now the app is killed, and we can launch it again, timer tutorial. And as you can see, it's still at 20 seconds and it's running again. And obviously we can also stop the timer. And now when we go away from this app and go again back to this app, it's still at 1 minute, nothing fancy here. And yeah, so that's it for this tutorial. If you wanna get the code written in this tutorial, click on the link in the video description, which is gonna take you to resocoder.com. If this tutorial helped you and you learned how to make a timer in Android, give this video a like and also share it. If you don't want to miss the next parts of this tutorial course, subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell button. Leave a comment if you want to say something, follow me on social media, and see you in the next video.